So like the name of the friend and like the sensitive spirit that Loki that like Leo the lion that Loki's actual sensitive spirit form might have been that of like a lion might have been the case of human friend. So like back in like the past while Loki was like the sensitive spirit of like Chair and like at that point I'm looking that I'm thinking about it kind of that might have been scenario where like Chair eventually that Chair and Loki might have fell in love and that might have been that fundamental breakage of that the whole between that and all of and represents this thing. Might have been the two might have been to like definitely not fall in love with each other. Might be the case with women things. In that way like it might have been care and that might also badly wanted to turn that view of the land into like using of magic to a human and basically and that way so that like Karen could like get married to that Loki that way might be what like Karen might have sadly want. So like and so, like even though deep down that Loki might have totally knew that this reading so might totally have like severe consequences like negative consequences still like due to that Loki as well deep down most likely you the line of still most likely without having that like feelings of affection towards like Karen like and that you might have not might have totally another point of view is to get a mental friends that from Karen point of view that Karen might have like Karen love might have made Karen blind to the point of that Karen even thinking that is the Karen might be able to like pull it off, like turning like breaking that out and basically turning like Leo into that Loki. Karen because of the Karen being like a popular and high level like she has the like talents and skills like she might be able to like what they pull that off without any make the confidence would be along the lines like and different like or like without any confidence would be along the lines like and everything that Karen might have or something back then might have been the case especially in information. So like even while Leo might have known of like the possible negative consequences and might have even told about it to like Karen like still under different like parents lack of confidence and like the friend desire to like quickly marry to turn Leo into that lazy human and basically to marry Loki, which like we saw Loki as well. While Loki might have want care, like might have become also good sport, like might have only resulted in like Loki not being able to like actually putting like actual effort into like stopping and preventing Karen from actually using that magic and basically using Karen like magic and turning Loki Leo the land so into that Loki might be what might have happened. This this might be the reason for like Loki's like getting to the person and Loki totally believing that risking that the reason for like Karen's like elimination might have been the case certainly memorable because like again might be solely due to that that Loki feeling that he should have been like more stern about like and like might should have ensured to like prevent that Karen from like attempting to like turn Leo into that Loki might be around the like black. So like it might Loki might be only finished feeling that like sort of spot exactly memorable. So like while Karen might have like executed that magic like to turn Leo into like the thing what might have happened might have been that Karen certainly might have uh, like went from human to spirit. That might have been what might have happened. While like that man, the stuff like that man might have also sometimes here resulted in like the self spirit like Leo turning into like the human. Logic might have been what might have happened. This definitely might have been so that definitely might have been resonance sitting on this really just like right now Loki only having like little time that to for like the good branches like for our like I'm totally putting that definitely right now for that I Lucy definitely said it like in the ending of perfect said it like Loki at like the very last final second was like the synapse that I'm looking and that's for like how Loki will be saying Loki like I'm totally connected most likely through that one like will be like and like in that final moments that can be like okay eventually that going from that human to that turning from that human to that spirit and spirit form and basically that way that Leo the lion form that will be returned back to like Leo the lion form and that Leo the lion spirit form as well will be starting like to do so like and that's again for the putting the scenario to be like basically pulling out cells with spirit like clone and basically most likely like will be using some sort of like unique magic to like totally to like to have that the soul of an spirit of like the vanishing like Leo to like merge with like the soul or like the spirit of that soul. The second which another thing that they like and something that Leo like getting saved and basically that being able to like keep on living through it's like the scenario that I'm looking for. Like them both as well as like Leo was like they have it like the soul or like spirit getting merged to like loses unique magic is like the scenario that I'm still going to. So definitely at that point, like I'm looking like a major power trade that happening for like Bloom and like Bloom gaining all the power of like Leo, like this is just that way like Bloom getting a major power trade as well as like a split personality like scenario also happening for like Bloom, where like at times like the scenario will be like from that point on like at times like Bloom will be able to like have will be having that Bloom's own personality and then like at like other times like it will be that shift will be happening in between like from personality as well as Leo's like personality as well. It's like the scenario that I'm in that way all this like act of that essentially like I'm putting like that situation of that Leo of like being banished from like the spirit realm of spirit world of like the sense of spirit like basically that totally Leo being able to like bypass solely through like use his help by being part of like clone like in that way like Leo being able to like that way get access once again to like the spirit world and basically be able to like return back to like the spirit world while Lucy won't be that was bringing out like in that battle, just like during the scenario that I was about like I'm playing that I'm sitting on definitely not the understand right now that it can might have that eventually most likely might have chance might have been a scenario where the can eventually might have used that out of the extreme disappointment on like Harry's the spirit actually might have really ended up using a transformation magic on that Aries and might have turned her into that Leo, like the lion, taking the form of that lion, and basically that way might have and might have like at that point that Karen might have even renamed that Aries and might have given her a new name, and that might be how that Gareth might have that way turned into that. Leo, like the Lion Plus, that might be what might have happened is definitely not preemptive. So definitely, yeah, like I'm even at that point, like I'm like the disappointment of that character toward like Gareth, like even the case of like Leon, the Lion, like might have remained because like and even while turning Gareth into one magic rings into like Leo, the Lion, to take the form of like a lion, a tough lion, like everything. Still, like the personality of that Gareth might have remained for like Leo, the Lion as well might be what might have happened is supplement care. That might have once again that extremely disappointed like care might have been what might have happened supplement care. So like in that eventually I'm looking that in one of in a research job that mission like it might have been extremely difficult and challenging because of the mission like that in which like I'm thinking might have not gone smoothly according to that how care might have hoped for and like the situation might have ended up with like uh, that all the other remaining sensitive spirits of that care like which might be extremely tough like then all might have ended up like getting overpowered by that villain or like that monster which might have been present as part of that job at that subject location might have been what might have happened is the human permission. That way, like I'm thinking that it might have ended up becoming a scenario where like Adam from that point like I'm thinking straight away like the self spirit like that Karen might have sent might have been might have been that Leo Leon brain. So like Leo initially itself like might have gotten visited by that monster and basically then like Karen might have sent all the remaining stuff sent this was like Karen to like fight that monster or that villain and then all the cells might have gotten defeated. So like it might have been a scenario where like Karen might have been partly defeated and like as like that villain stick that villain or like that monster might have been about to like eliminate Karen like at that last second like I'm looking like Karen might have felt probably felt that it was like only game over for like Karen. But like at that very last second I'm looking like fight for the remaining self script might have been the silent state like defeated silent state like I'm looking might have been only that Leo the Lion alone that might have struggled its way even while being badly injured and exhausted like might have still struggled its way into that totally protecting Karen and might have managed to that put all of its like luck with a strength to that in some sort of like an attack again like that monster and might have defeated and taken out that monster and saved Karen that way might have been what might have happened especially when brain so like that extreme disappointment that like Karen ultimately brain might have had to like deal the lion like from that point on like Karen might have totally had that absolute change in the way she treated she might have treated like the might have been the case if everyone had friends. From disappointment, like it might have gone to like a feeling of like gratitude at that point. While that because like critical mental that might have been a scenario where like Karen might have given up all hopes of like basically of like surviving that situation when like it might have been the potentially the unexpected scenario where like Leo alone might have managed to like still save care, might have been the case, depending on which like care might have eventually felt so extremely grateful towards like Leo at that point, and like that feeling might have brought them close, and basically that Karen and Leo might have only gone on, and like a great friendship might have been formed within that from that point on, and that Karen might have only from that point on might have started to like treat Leo totally different and in a proper way, and that whole bond of friendship might have eventually turned into like a feeling of like absolute affection from like sharing towards like Leo. Might have been what might have happened to Leo relation, and like like that might have eventually resulted in that Leo has still deep down feeling that affection back towards like her as that might have been what might have happened with Leo friends. And that way like I'm different like from like the celestial spirit form of transformation change, which according to my friends might have only happened from like during that Aries magic from like Aries to that I think like the word Aries like some spirit like taking the form of that Leo the lion from that form of that Leo the lion like something like yeah might have according to my friends might have only decided to like turn Leo the lion into like an extremely handsome individual, and basically that way human, and basically that way for like Karen might have decided to like that way to get married to that and to call it like Loki, and that way for like Karen to get married to that Loki might be along the lines that Karen might have eventually ended up deciding might have been what kind of happiness that feeling of the period that he wanted. The conversation sitting about the finish that maybe it might have been simply one like usually like Karen like using transformation as can turning Aries into like Leo, into taking the form of like Leo the lion, and lion like certificate, and basically then eventually like kind of falling in love with like Leo, and basically like attempting to like, turn Leo into like Loki, a human. It might have resulted in like Karen like turning into like a spirit, and basically like Loki turning into like Leo turning into like Loki's a human. That at that point like definitely the master of Bob might have been extremely shocked at like that once he found out about all of that about like the seven laws of like Karen helpful as like the situation of like Aries by then like ending up as like a human like Loki, and basically being getting banished from like the fifth world and everything. Like, so at that point, I'm thinking like poor Loki might have been extremely sad and disappointed, and like might have been suffering a lot, and like basically with that after shock and everything. So like at that point, like the Master Bob might have struggled to like comfort and calm down. Like the fear that point might have been one kind of happiness of human can be no elections like the Master Bob as well as like Mac or I think are like kind of that different like and um like literally once like Makarov and like Bob might have had like this like master maybe it might have been in one of like the masters meeting that like and like Makarov might have noticed how Bob was like extremely disturbed, and to that interaction between like Makarov and Bob that Bob might have revealed about like this whole situation that had happened with like losing sudden loss of like their and like Loki's situation and everything. And at that point, I'm looking for like it might have been Makarov that might have told Bob that like basically to that like he wants to like speak to like Loki, and like at that point I'm looking like it might have been Makarov during that whole interaction with like Loki. Like it might have been Makarov who might have succeeded in like comforting and calming down Loki with like Loki's situation. Which even like Master Bob even couldn't like like macro made of the freedom of that, and like it might have been like macro that might have told asked the permission of like Bob and told Bob that basically that like macro like until like notice like human form like basically time period is like over like basically until that point for like macro to like totally cut off like Loki as like one of the like children in like the fairy tales family. So like it might have been macro at that point like that might have solved like the permission of like Bob, and Bob might have been so pleased and happily might have agreed to that, might have been what might have happened. And this might be how that Loki might have ended as like a fairy tale kid number. Might be what might have happened is also eventually happened. Is also definitely my person very interesting right. Like definitely my person very interesting right now is that like that might exist like two conditions. Like either one of those two conditions might be at least might have to get satisfied one for like as a spirit to even so they it's like not might be the case is definitely very correct. And those two conditions might be fear towards like for like to just to like how fear towards it's like not for like that as to affect towards it's like not. So that the like in like the mermaid sensitive spirit of like Lucy's case in like the beginning like the fact that like that mermaid sensitive spirit had shown that whole disobedience towards like Lucy in like the beginning of like the show like that might have been due to like the mermaid sensitive spirit lacking that absolute fear as well as lack of respect towards like Lucy might be the reason for like that mermaid sensitive spirit like disobeying Lucy action might be the case that limit break. So like right now like the person like in like the backstory of like Loki as well. That in like the case of like Leo, like the fact that like Karen is not is not able to like make Leo obey Karen, is not able to like stall Leo back to like that point. Might be probably to like that exactly this reason as well because like Leo at that point might out of the lack that about that fear as well as like respect towards like Karen, while poor Harris on the other hand might have that both that fear as well as like uh, skills might have like even though like Karen like mistreating for here is like still here is reason might also have that suggest like towards like her master might be also the case with definitely my realization. So definitely my realization right now is for like Leo right now to like right now who has like disobedience to like to, uh to go back to the step what I'm looking right now for like Leo to like make another threat to like to care and understand right now Leo feeling care in the baby with like Karen even cares to like even but for the stuff Aries even once more then like Karen will have to like face the wrath of like Leo to be along the lines of the and right now Leo making that up with at like Karen he should be totally unsuffering at that point will be even that intimidation might Karen would be feeling at that point and like that fear as well as like Karen will be also feeling frustrated and enraged towards like Leo at the same time and like Karen will be getting to speed or at that point. So that dialogue was clarified by Leo on that one, the scenario that I was saying. And that Leo on the phone will that coming back to the stupid one, that scenario that I was saying. About even something like at that point from like technical feel that aspect fear. Yeah, like also that aspect towards like Leo, yeah, like Sharon would be also fine intensely with me and at the same time would be also seeing Leo as like an asset of like an as like an active tool of like an absolute weapon for like that keeps Sharon strong as like a subscript wizard and everything. So Liam is putting like care even at that point like once like we all just went back to like script or like and like on his own will like at that point I'm just putting like care and slowly decide taking out for of us staying and rage towards like Harris even at that point due to like the actions of like Dio. It's like a scenario that happens. So like Karen deciding to like stealthily cause suffer kind of like cause suffering to like what Harris once again was like the scenario that happens. And when Karen at that point deciding to like since like I think like it's both like Leo revealing that both Leo as well as like Harris found by a single contact I think like so if you have to think like Karen on the point of created a like slowly changing up that contract in such a way that basically like in Karen splitting up that contract into a separate contract like that single contract it might be like founding to which like Karen as well as like Leo will be bounded by like and by setting it to like fully to the contract while keeping like Leo's like contract unchanged like like Karen like steadily like fighting up a new contract for like air alone and like they letting as is that binding of like the contract between like air as well as like Leo without Leo finding out like scenario that I'm doing and like that thing will be like with like Karen's like realistic plan to like that way to cause by causing all that to cause all that suffering once again to like add even more and so that in such a way so that it could like split the contract like Leo won't be finding out about it. And that way to like at that point even after like the suffering to like probably let's kind of like try and swap and to like not reveal about uh, about like the things care will be doing to like Leo by threatening by taking advantage of that fear of like the poor care to like to keep her from revealing like the truth about like how care will be dealing risk at that point without like you finding out. It's like the scenario that I'm describing. So like that way I'm describing that care that I'm just like splitting up the contract between that Leo as well as Aries and like Karen at that point would be causing a lot of even more greater suffering to like work and like you that and that time the time will be in like the step point of realizing all this and like you will get only at that point assuming that basically so that your threat might have resulted in like Karen quickly getting eliminated and like Karen might stop like causing the germs and to like could be around the lines like Leo in like a comforting manner. The relaxing man up might be elected at like the spiritual without realizing how the extreme situation of like the poor of like suffering of like the poor by care like there is a scenario that I'm in. So like that way so it will like the villains take suffering of like care like and because like care taking a lot of burdens as well like the in the scenario that I'm in. So like that way then Karen once again like threatening then like will be like and Karen and also bring like totally even like forcing her to like light to that Leo. Leo even asked Eris about like Eris's like injuries to like light to like Leo by saying that like it was that sort of like it was on battle against like some villains or like monsters in which which like Karen had faced off in which like Karen had used like Eris would be along the lines like uh, Karen would be threatening Eris to like light to like Leo and uh, Karen would be threatening to Eris stability Karen would be causing even more suffering like that. She doesn't have it. So it's like the scenario like that way like poor Eris like probably listening to like Karen and with ongoing back to like the world and then like there's like totally like to that Leo at that point to like Leo only knows the like the risk of that here and like you straight away like asking her about it and like it's probably to interact with best to like make her like really convincing to like Leo but like I'm just wondering that still definitely Leo will be at that point to be able to like easily see through it and like I'm just wondering that Leo straight away at that point would be giving a fully embrace and like in like Leo his own will and his own will like I'm doing even without like having like some Leo into like the real world and like Leo on his own will like basically on the get world like I'm doing like him like going up to like the real world and Leo straight away like would be that was Karen would be actually shocked seeing that an extremely enraged Leo, who's like the scenario that I'm considering. So at that point, I was like Karen like trying to like stop Leo, the enraged Leo by like sending out like one among other strong spirits, and I'm going to find like a fight, an intense fight between like Leo and that the spirit who would be like totally obeying like Karen, which like the scenario that I'm doing, and like in that fight, like I'm like Leo totally for indicating that other self spirit and like in Leo, as like Leo will be working towards like Karen, like energetized Karen, like at that point, I'm making like Karen to play calling out like Aries at that point, and like Karen at that point would be like threatening Leo with like something or even the elimination of like the scenario that I'm going to go. So like that I'm thinking that will be ending up becoming like the tipping point of like Leo at that point. And that would be the last straw. So like Leo and actually the generation Leo at that point I'm looking like definitely so say like ending up taking out like Karen is like in this scenario that I'm looking for. So like at that point I'm looking for a name for like Karen like in her attempts to like probably like to totally save herself from like elimination by Leo like and like Karen like at that very last second I'm that would be like using some sort of like a spell to like turn Leo into like a human so that like Leo would be like losing all of his like access to his like sensitive spirit powers at that point. That way to like stop Leo like like Karen will be like using sort of like a unique spell to like turn Leo into like a human. But like like uh Leo will be shouting at like Karen. So like like that by the time Leo would be like taking out Sharon like I'm only at that last second like I'm putting like Leo I'm putting like landing was like that and then usually in the Sharon and taking out Sharon. So like and that way last second I'm content Sharon like well, Twitter Leo into like a human as well, getting activated at that point in fact, the scenario. But like that only getting activated only by the time like Leo will be taken off care, it's like in the scenario that I'm going to copy correct. So that way that can be different like that so like Karen going like I'm different like Harris at that point would be feeling so extremely sad and like about like would be feeling so extremely guilty as well. So Air should be feeling extremely guilty as well for like sad. Even at that point, I'm thinking like what Aries will be like feeling sad about like losing Karen as well as like basically like that absolute feeling of guilt as well would be like what Aries would be feeling that like it was two to her that basically Leo has totally ended up like breaking that like extremely important social code between like owner and like defense would be like getting at that point would be getting banished from like the strict world like usually like this all the reason translate like Aries would be totally feeling extremely guilty as well. So like I'm just from like at the airport Aries like I'm just from like shouting out that absolute sorry to like Leo at that point while Harris at that point, but like Karen Bond should be like straight away you'll be getting called back to like the skit world. It's like the scenario that happened. So like that way like Leo turning into like in like becoming like a human at that point in like human forms like in the scenario that happened and like mentally I'm also bring like the other initially I'm also bring that and without really I'm also bring Master Bob would be finding out about this, and then the different like Bob would be certainly definitely revealing everything that like Leo would be telling him because of like Bob already having witnessed like and knowing like the realistic things that like Karen had done to herself with before Karen already before. I believe Bob will be like at that point he straight away believe that the words of like Leo and like the friend like Leo at that point will be absolutely ready to like take any so whatever punishment it would be that like we will be hoping that like Master Bob will be delivering to that Leo would be along the lines like Leo will be absolutely not running away or trying to like even escape and will be probably willing to like receive for just like the consequence of like, the punishment that he will be in front of. But like I'm just like instead like bomb like totally apologizing to like Leo for like basically like for like basically Bob has like a master of doing a better job and like not being able to like bring about a change in like the good direction in like care within that point. So like I'm hearing like Bob at that point would be apologizing to a shop Leo at that point of like person that I'm observing. And then also bring like from that point like I'm bring like the situation of like Leo of like basically having been turned into like a human as well like that number from like 2021 might have been even and like the sort of like also getting fans from like from government from like the state world as well might have ended up with like Leo as well like totally uh, feeling that was greatly feeling down and disappointed and like Bob might have not been able to like comfort Leo, and it might be at that point that I'm like into the interaction between that Bob and Mac or like Mac for finding out about all this and that Mac are deciding to like to be that absolute savior by like talking to like Leo and like it might have been Macro that might have given like it like to like give that absolute first start uh for like Leo like and it might have been like Macro that might have even given changed Leo's name and might have even given Leo the name Loki as well might be the reason and might have told might have only taken him to the path of the heritage guild as well. Might have been what might have happened. This definitely might have been the reason. So like what Neiman mentioned right now, that basically Karen might have like necessarily held on to her like villains with extreme ego for like more than 2 months and which might have better in like Karen it might have already better in like Karen getting eliminated before like so 3 month time period like that Leo had stayed in like the different world might have been what might have happened simply my problem period. So like that for this like during this whole time period like I'm going so the like Karen might not only like to like all of our like other like team members of like sub guild as well as like the Bob as well. Like I'm looking like Bob is like a master might have seriously failed at like totally properly assessing and like figuring out like the situation with like Karen as well. Karen might have totally made some sort of like a life for like her from taking up with her job. That during that in that time might have been what kind of happens definitely thing. So, and like Bob has like a mastermind totally failed to like figure out like might have only believe those lives might have believed those lives of Karen and might have not been able to like figure out what was going on with like Karen from like not taking up like things with some jobs and taking the leave for like he might have only taken a leave from that figure or like that and that and might have been also the case with Liam and friends. So like it might have been due to like Leo's like life force being like that is stronger than like of range being like greater than like the range of the sentences of care that might have certain care might have bottom like uh, might have got eliminated before even making it to like 3 months might have been what kind of happened with Milan, for instance. Maybe the reason for Leo who was suffering after the first month, I think eventually ending up uh, eventually ending up getting used to the human world to staying in the human world. By the time it was almost 3 months and basically him not suffering as much as he used to be until that point might have been that whole situation might have happened to Leo on the on the very day that Karen might have ended up getting eliminated might have been what might have happened to Lehman Friend. So definitely that one Karen might have not eliminated from due to her life was getting drained might have been what might have happened. So, so at that point I was the moment Karen might have eliminated what might have happened might have been all of Karen's sense spirit including Aries might have safely returned back to the spiritual might have been what happens in the present, while Leo alone might have failed to even realize that all this that has happened might have been also the case in the condition. The clear for since it was due to even if it was due to Karen's extreme villainous ego, which might have resulted in Karen's elimination. Still, the factor of Leo adamantly staying remaining in the human world as well was a factor at this might have eventually resulted in Karen's elimination. So that's the other thing that might have been considered as a breakage of that uh, important role uh, between a self spirit and a self spirit, and that way in the Leo might have already got vanished from Discord, and Leo might have not even realized it. Since the moment of Carol's elimination, Leo might have failed to realize about all these things that might have happened. This definitely might be created. So and then before that vanishing might have been also a fact that might have resulted in Leo not Leo suffering by remaining in the human body, eventually ending up easing up for them might have been also the case as for what might have happened. It's definitely might have been there. And as well as accountable permission also providing there might exist also another role which about which neither Karen nor Leo might have not been even aware of that. Which might have been that there might have been definitely a role of an absolute time limit as for how long any regardless of how powerful relationship is there might be an actual time limit as to how long a relationship can stay in the human world without returning back to the spiritual. And I'm just it might be maybe 1 month at maximum. So definitely after that 1 month time limit, 1 or 2 months might be the case. Minimum. So after that time limit, the role self spirit staying in continuing on staying in the human world might be considered as breakage of that role, which might be the breakage of that role might result in might result in that sense of spirit turning into a human might be also the consequence of the breakage of that role as well. About which neither Sharon nor Leo might be even aware of. So also definitely that I'm about. So this as well might be the case also definitely might be and might be how collectively Leo might have ended up turning into a human. Might be the case is definitely not correct. Apart from that information, also supporting that Leo, I think, having already revealed to be living and staying in the human world as a human for 3 years, I think. So probably that Leo being able to has a certain spirit who has turned into a human and being able to stay in the human world for 3 4 years that might not at all be due to Leo's life force its whole range being that much extremely greater than Cam's life force might definitely not be the reason for Leo being able to stay as a human and live in the human world for 3 whole years might have been due to once uh caring illness and most likely it's happened to something that possible secondary role for a case that might have happened. But like Leo like or staying in like the world, which might have also a certain like Leo automatically getting turned into like a human. So since like the moment like that might have happened, might have been like definitely a commemoration. The point where like Leo's like suffering might have been and the Leo might have not realized about it, might have been what happened. So like since that point, I'm like the drainage of like the life force of like Leo, which like until that point might have been at like a very fast pace that might have since slowed down just like the moment that Leo might have turned into election might have been the case is definitely what I thought like what might have actually happened back then is definitely a possibility that like this might be the reason for like since then like might be due to like that drainage of like Leo's like force like seriously slowing down uh might be the reason for like Leo since then being able to after turning into like a human being able to like remain in like the human world for like 3 4 months 3 4 years might be solely due to that factor. I don't might be the case is definitely might be very unfortunate right. So that's definitely not the clear understand right now as for like maybe as for like that better thing everything might have been that during like the 3 4 months that basically Leo had like or stayed in like the human world during that time like maybe I'm looking for like multiple times like great number of times like Kevin might have that attempted to like hopefully bring out Aries as the subconscious like Aries as well to like the human world and like might have failed each and every single time might have been what might have happened certainly no potential. So like definitely like Karen's like realistic plan that when might have been to like that day it is even by Leo's like something like human work it is also also sort of way thinking like bringing out like still bringing out Aries as well into like the human world. Then like that then like the realistic Karen's like plan might have been to like that way to bring Aries to that exact location picture rooms in front of like Leo and basically to that in front of like Leo to that force that has been suffering to like Aries and basically that way in that prove to that Leo that like Leo like strategy how failed and basically that and basically that way to for like to make to hopefully make like Leo feel they have been really defeated and basically that way to that forcefully make Leo feel like a failure and basically that way to that force Leo to that come back to that escape world might have been that Karen's like Venus decline might have been the case like impossible to that other right? So like Karen's that they might have attempted like multiple times to like bring out Aries and might have failed might have been what so then number two like as for like so like percent of that like Karen had been taken like it might have been due to like Karen at that point but like Karen like multiple failures to like bring out like Aries like Karen might have decided that like in an extremely pressurized situation that Karen might be only in like an extremely pressurized situation that Karen might be actually be able to like bring out like the full extent of like all the magic that contains of like Karen to like to properly use to like that way to be able to like actually bring out air to like to like the human world like Karen might probably have to be in like an extremely pressurized situation would be an ambulance like Karen might have probably came down to the conclusion of that when might be the reason for like Karen at that point like recklessly taking up like the job and like might have hoped that basically in that pressurized situation that by taking up that job that against it might have been against like most of those like powerful things then it's like at that point like Karen might be able to like actually succeed in like bringing out error but like that might have been how that attempt even at that the right situation might have failed that Karen might have not eliminated. The other possibility that I'm looking is for like maybe after like Karen's like elimination like Karen's like spirit like for like I think like for like the 3 years might have while wandering through like the world like might have ended up eventually being able to like recognize her mistakes and like learning her lessons and feeling that absolute regret might have been like something that might have happened to like Karen like maybe a second month of that episode and so like that way on the bring like maybe being like the person like Karen's spirit might be totally a totally changed person like the spirit of Karen might be like the person might be a totally changed person so like and like maybe since like right now Loki is like starting to like disappear right in front of like Karen's like grave so like I'm saying maybe Karen's like spirit right now totally showing up and basically like I'm whispering so like that way I'm whispering maybe it's like a remote possibility of like Lucy right now not only being able to like save Loki alone but like also like being able to like save share along with like Loki as well. It's also like the other possibility that I'm whispering remote possibility that I'm whispering that way like I'm whispering maybe like Lucy using one of like unique magic that Lucy and that maybe it might be like some under the nice of that beauty. Also like about the which like which is totally quickly calling out like flow and basically that in the state of the merging like the spirits of that Loki as well as like Cam and like and that merging the spirits with like the self spirit flow at that point. So like about that and maybe like Lucy totally asking flow as well for like submission before doing that as well because like about that and if we are going to focus for like submission and like not totally that agreeing to that and I'm that way like I'm saying that from getting that major power there of that both Loki's power as well as like Karen's power as well as like uh as well as at the same time that the whole split personality situation as well happening before like one simultaneously along with the power where like at times it would be that new version flow that at times it would be that it would be flow that would be it would be Chrome's personality and at times it would be like Loki's personality and at times it would be that Jen like personality that will be coming out through Clone like that new version of Clone. There's like also like the other theory more positive side and the and then yes, so like definitely my preparation right now is definitely for like ability to like definitely succeed with like hidden like ability to have like immense like hidden like potential of like extreme magic contained within about which like Lucy might be having absolutely no idea at all. Like neither Lucy nor any number of the different things which we having absolutely no idea at all. Especially on the using which like I'm thinking that Lucy of Lucy right now will definitely be succeeding in like opening up like the gate to like the spirit world and both open like the gate to like skip for them like that way let's save Loki just like the scenario but like I'm preparing that and at that point still I'm thinking that Loki getting saved and at that point still I'm thinking that yeah like Loki would be disappearing while Loki will be returning back to like the state first but at that point it's like they're exactly Loki is in front of like yeah great like and they're still like and like Loki's like self spirit he would be appearing just like the scenario that I'm saying like that way that Lucy would be picking up that he that way would be writing like a new contract for like the spirit like Loki. And that way I'm looking from that point on like I'm looking like Loki would be ending up fighting alongside like Lucy as like the self spirit of like Lucy that they might be everything. So that's like the scenario that yeah like I'm doing the action of like Lucy I'm looking that having like creating like a huge ripple effect and like having a lot of extreme very significant consequences like attracting the attention of like extreme highly powerful sensitive spirit beings. This would be like the extreme higher up in like the very top of like the sensitive spirit in like the sensitive spirit world realm that we are looking that might be this like strongest like top hierarchy strong of like most powerful like and like intimating and extremely powerful like self spirit beings that will be like managing like the control and like would be like the sensitive spirit beings particles with spirit beings that would overcome like the rules and the laws of like the spirit world and everything is definitely not correct. So like definitely it's just these are like basically fully changing those rules would be definitely attracting their attention and would be like them would be like getting extremely enraged like at that point. So, certainly my impression. So definitely I was thinking that ability doing that would be is something that like not even like that strong self spirit beings like the very top might have never even considered as like even a possibility. Like not even a single self spirit that until this point might have never forcefully changed like any of like the roles of like the spirit world might have been like the day the element like I'm talking Lucy being like the very first the spirit wizard such a wizard to even know that it's like also like Michael's very impressive. So that way like but there might not even like this strong self spirit beings that like the very top would have written all these roles in of like the spirit world might have not even considered such a possibility and that because that like extreme levels of like mana and magic might be required to even be able to do that like everything like this top such things might have never not even considered that such a possibility and hence might have never even returned any sort of law of like consequence of like a punishment against like any self skill that to be even doing that might be the case that lemon differently. Yet like I'm saying like Lucy's active like to this and like that way saving rewriting like the rules of pencil with code word is definitely putting right now to definitely Lucy is feeling in that like attracting like the attention and wrap of like basically of this of self skill spirit beings that like to be it off and like them totally from that point on like would be totally following that Lucy's journey and would be definitely that as would be determined to like eventually definitely ensure to like handle that absolute punishment to like Lucy for like even there to like change up like the like growth of innocence with word which like these like top strong like sensitive things have themselves written is like the scenarios that I'm in. So like in like Lucy's journey, like I'm just like a major shift, like a turning point and the different like to be like the current situation of like Lucy, like save Lucy is like the scenario that I'm looking at the direction and the like the thing I'm definitely right now, but I think for like Lucy to like succeed in like saving Loki and like rewriting like the rules of the world, but like I'm just like that only being possible for like Lucy right now, like it was only by like only by Lucy only just for like a brief moment being able to like access that proven immense potential of that magical power that will be contained within like Lucy. Lucy I'm like due to like the current situation of that absolute desperation and need that I'm only briefly, only just momentarily being able to like access that immense power of within like Lucy. And that alone the friend will be what allows Lucy to like succeed in like changing up the road. But like after like Lucy will be done with that like as soon as Lucy would be done with that like Lucy will be instantly once again losing access to that enough extreme potential and power of like Lucy. It's like doing the scenario that I'm looking at. And like Lucy being able to like willfully and consciously access all that power and use all that power in like a battle and everything. But when that only being possible for like Lucy, only at like the very extreme distant future alone for like Lucy, definitely my talking to Lucy. So definitely one brain right now is definitely for like the self came to totally deliver punishment or like a consequence to like Lucy for even attempting to like change up that the role of like the spirit for this like the scenario that I'm thinking right now. So that's what like what that consequence or like punishment would be so definitely like for like right now like the spirit king like so the king to like totally take away like 50% of like the total lifespan of like Lucy and give it to like Loki and that being like the punishment for like Lucy for actions right now is that one positive that I'm looking for the method of mention of the like that's the current action of like Lucy and the people like Loki right now would have the change that might have happened to like Loki that they are Loki right now might be permanently human. So definitely my book yet like I'm friend of like they have been already having like 50% of like the lifespan of like the total lifespan of like Lucy and Lucy's total lifespan as well like being already with 3%. So that might be the case like the one possibility that I'm further possibilities for like some sort of like a different punishment of like some extreme negative consequence for like Lucy in like the future, like definitely for like which is like an action to like save Lucy, that's the scenario that I'm doing. And that consequence definitely to be so extreme for like Lucy. That would be like a way for like Lucy that I'm looking at that totally will be eventually resulting in like once like Natsu and Balu will be finding out like if once like Natsu will be finding out like definitely Natsu will be absolutely determined to like definitely fight the Spirit King and bring down like the Spirit King. Because like at that point like I'm referring that Lucy will be totally of like the mindset of like acceptance as like basically like if that's like the consequence of like Lucy's actions then like basically Lucy like would like totally deal with that would be along the lines and Lucy would only accepting that would be along the lines of like an acceptance kind of like a mindset like Lucy would be in at that point. Definitely, even though Lucy would be totally feeling that relieved that like Lucy was able to like save Loki even with like family members benefit, even if that Loki's lifespan as like a punishment might have made bottom might be getting that reduced to like 50% might consider it. Still Lucy is only being happy that like Loki Lucy was able to like save Loki to be along the lines of like in an acceptance manner, like acceptance to like the punishment of like the Spirit King will be of like the mindset like Lucy will be in at that point. But like in the front of play will be in absolute that to be in such an absolute shock on like realizing all this like happens and definitely that would be like definitely reacting in an extremely rebellious manner and would be definitely absolutely determined from hearing that finding out from that point on itself like not will be totally determined to like definitely fight eventually totally fight and surrender down like with skin and basically that way like now so we only think that basically that they are able to like defeat like the Squid King then like they can like then Lucy can fight around that role of like with that episode like justice like Lucy will be able to like fight around perfect role for like the entirety of like the spirit real for like the entirety of like the self spirit. If uh, if the and the only lack of settle in like the path of like the being able to like do that is only like the self spirit thing. So like all they have to do is like take down like self spirit thing. If you're along the lines of like conclusion and like the final decision that I'm doing like now to be usually come down to settling on the remission. So basically like I'm just bring like that we like both Loki as well as like Lucy will be selling would be not at all would be like feeling as if like that would even be possible because like person things would be that much extremely powerful might be the case especially when get like I'm feeling like enough to be having that absolute or confidence or like that absolute belief in like himself and like where it is to start like Lucy and like Loki that they believe if they work together like they would definitely be able to like fight and bring down and bring down like the king would be along the lines of like that I would believe that natural alone will be having which number of people like would be eventually becoming infectious to like and spreading to that Lucy as well as like Loki along the journey and like the fairy tale eventually and then all teaming up together and like working hard and like from that point on like they will have that absolute need more than ever to like get as strong as possible because like they have we all having that absolute urgency of like that situation like the back of their mind while even while taking up like preparatives with a job and everything they will be strongly having in the back of their mind like and also be always having that strong feeling that they strong feeling of urgency that they believe like definitely have no other choice but like definitely ensure like get as strong as possible within like without wasting much time at all because like definitely seriously like not to extreme concern like we will have like kind of like not only Loki but like we will see as well like possibly a fundamental person having some like strength reduced to like 50%. So definitely that is like the mental situation that I'm looking at. And that way, like, I'm doing like them all fitting in that absolute hard work. While their journey, like, the relatives would be going on, at like, they will be having all of the fun and basically taking up all sorts of like different kind of like jobs and everything. Like, still, at that time, like, they would be that, or that, especially like Loki, you see, as like, Nancy would be always having that thought in like the back of the mind that is that they definitely should be like getting as soon as possible getting disease this form so that like they would be able to like into the fight and bring down like the uh, uh, like spirit king so that like that way definitely they can undo that like 50% reduction in like not only undo like the 50% reduction in like the lifespan of like Lucy as well as like Loki. Um, like the lifespan of like Lucy, but also would be like change of like the rules to the point of like is the like not only like giving like Loki that like actual true levels of like lifespan of like a human as well as like maybe that I being them being able to like do either that to like Loki or like them being able to like turn Loki into like a proper actual spirit like exactly how as to like how Loki was like the past maybe if that like what that Loki really said and basically that like they will be able to like I'm sorry but like there might be all sorts of like just this kind of like flawed rules in like this world of like the filter spirit might be the case about which like in their journey like and like Lucy will be like Lucy will be finding out about it like more and more about like all these like flaws and unfair flawed and unfair rules that might exist in like this world is definitely not fair. So like even more as their journey continues even more and like they will have that absolute right with the and feeling that absolute need to like to be bring down like the simplistic thing and ways so that like they can like rewrite all the laws and basically you'll be able to like deliver justice not only to themselves but also to like all the other self spirits. So like definitely not put anything right now is that like the self spirits like all of them might be immortal as long as like they follow like the rules of any spirit world might be like that type of integration between manipulated. So that be like this might be the reason for like the spirit itself, the spirit king even addressing and like the see as like old friend, especially also might be there. So and yet like my country impression so for like the possibility that like maybe naturally that it might have not just been like that might have been like since like inception of like the self spirit world it might have been not only it might have been not just like the spirit king alone like that might have existed but like the spirit queen as well might have existed and like all the uh all the self spirits great number of self spirits that exist might be actually offerings of like the spirit king and queen might be the case definitely not very understood. Yet like I'm putting like that might have been or that might have happened during like the inception of like the creation of like the sense spirit real by this might have been done by like the together by like his spirit king as well as like his spirit queen might have been the case of minimum condition and then like they might have decided to like right pointers like for like the offerings like self-respect offerings to like follow might be the case at minimum level. So like while writing like the rules like I'm different like uh, there might have been like a clash between like clash of like opinion strong clash of like opinion between like the spirit king and like spirit queen might have been the case especially my brain question. So definitely that might have resulted in like basically actually that uh, them arguing to like the point of that basically because like the rules that the spirit king might have wanted for like the offering since the spirits might have been a lot, might have had like a lot of flaws and that the spirit queen might have been able to like only see that and might have been able to like see how that the humans would be like becoming like the masters of like those senses of all these like simplistic like surveillanceistic humans might would totally take advantage of like among like humans like the surveillanceistic ones might totally take advantage of like that flaw and like loopholes in like the role of like the kid world that like the king like this, that the kid that the kid king might have wanted as like that as you know, might be along the lines of the like the might be the case and that might be along the lines back then like back then itself in like that ancient past itself like the kid queen might have been shortly able to like see that way like like what might have happened might have been like the spirit king and like the spirit queen might have clashed and like fought between themselves and basically they might have decided to stand like the victor of like the fight between them getting to like the side like which one of the sets of like rules of like what needs to be enforced is like maybe along the lines like they might have decided so like in that plans between like the split king and like the split queen like that it might have been eventually like the split king that might have eventually ended up defeating like the split queen and like that way the plot rules of set of like written rules of like the split king might have enforced onto like the offspring cells still still might great number of it might have been what might have happened is like might have been average. So like definitely like the state queen might have been extremely disappointed and like basically might have thoroughly and over time might have like since the ancient past like and as time past like and putting like the poor state queen might have been suffering so much seeing how badly like the humans who had like among like the humans like the ones that had like surveillance side to them like were like taking advantage of like the clocks, lecture rules and everything about which like I'm hearing like maybe like the spirit thing might have not there at all. Like his ideology might have been different and like so like he might have been like the spirit thing might have been totally insensitive and might have been totally forgivable that happened while like the queens might have been extremely disturbed and like might have been going through all that suffering seeing her like offering or for like seeing like among like the offering still spirits like the ones that were going through the suffering due to like the spirit things that cloud also and everything. So like everything like a lot of time might have passed and like until eventually understand like the spirit being might have been totally fed witnessing or the course of the great number of years like physically witnessing like the suffering of like great number of like offspring then probably to like the things that not all might have been the case that like like the spirit queen might have decided to like leave like the spirit world and basically to take a human form might have been what might happen especially in Ukraine. So like and that might have only happened in like the recent past while Lucy might have been born like at that point like the situation might have decided to like to have a spirit like the represent like a human. The Squid might have searched for and selected found and selected like the ideal human, which like the Squid might have believed as like that ideal human who will be like totally compassionate and who will be like sharing her own who will be like having the same mind having like her own same mindset and her own same ideologies and everything compassion and empathy towards like self and everything. So definitely that human that like Queen spirit might have easily ended up finding and like selecting might have ended up with them exactly Lucy because Queen spirit might have been within like Lucy today. Lucy might have been what might have happened back then is definitely not great. So like what like the spirit kings might have done might have been like until that point like all the like immortal principle spirit like offerings might have all knew that the spirit kings as well as like the spirit king as like the as like the like spirits that like the very top energy. So the spirit king at that point once like spirit king might have left that what the spirit king might have done might have been he might have straight away erase like the memories of all the celestial spirits connecting to like the existence of like spirit queen might have been what might have happened in the movement. So like after that erasing might have been done by the spirit king and that since then like I'm saying all the celestial spirits might have been thinking since that point that like there was only one like self spirit like the ultimate self spirit and like the way of and that's like only like the spirit king might be what like all the offering self spirit might have believed after getting their memory erased none of them might have been since then even to the person might be then aware of like the existence of like a spirit queen might be the case definitely member famous and that was spirit queen as well like while between only my profession might be within like Lucy, like and when like produce Lucy might be totally unaware of it. It's definitely my profession and like like it, the spirit queen might have also have like after like being part of like the future. And like different like the spirit queen as well might have had like a lot of limitations happening there. Like spirit queen might not be at like person might not be since then like after being part of like Lucy might have not been able to like forcefully use her powers and make Lucy aware of like the existence of like spirit queen within like Lucy and everything. So like not for all that to happen, like Lucy might have to like naturally uh end up like growing her powers and reaching that point of that strength where like Lucy will be able to like actually recognize and realize and be aware of like the presence of like the spirit queen within Lucy. Only for at that point alone might be like the point and like the necessary conditions which would be even making it possible for like the spirit queen to even be able to like communicate with like Lucy. Might be also the that limitation of like a case might be is the also definitely might be very interesting. So definitely until that point like the spirit queen might be like laying traps within like it might be the case definitely might be very interesting. So like I'm just like right now and this like even while like the spirit king calls like Loki old friend like we believe the fact that like the spirit king also calls uh like Lucy as well like old friend might have been definitely like the spirit king probably steadily referring to like the spirit queen and like laying trap within like music might be like that way of consideration. Might be the order to connect getting even addressing Lucy as well along with like Loki as well as like post might be the activity of the reason behind it might be the case of so definitely and with like the spirit king might be having like might be having such fast way of that doing things and everything and even while according to my prevention like the all the skills might be like offense of like the skill king as well as like the skill and also like it's like the offense it is like even right even while like the yeah even then like the skill king will be addressing all the self spirit as like friends as like old friends and like even while he addresses the sensitive as like old friends like even if like a single sensitive like breaks the rule of like the fifth world like number one like the scripting would be like without any hesitation would be like enforcing this like rule against like the sensitive spirits would be like the reason for like the like scripting like the person like who had like the need ban like Loki from like the spirit world for like the past 3 years. Like basically like in like the person like totally calling like still calling like Loki old friend like would be that just like unique way um unique and possibly eccentric way of like the spirit things like approach towards most what might be more probably just like offerings all these like sensitive might be the case definitely Michael Korean. So definitely that from the microtransation about like thing that the spirit queen might be present within that Lucy and like the spirit queen even taking such a risk to like totally to live like the spirit realm, the spirit world, and basically like to like to focus within like a human, to be within like a human might be totally to like eventually like make that change happen through a human like since like humans are like masters of like person with like through a human like the split queen might have believed that is even though the split queen had basically about when the print might have thought for like the change to happen to connect into like the plot like SpiritKing might have wanted like and so like and might have paid like the ancient past like still that the spirit queen might have after like selecting Lucy as like the chosen one like the spirit queen might have also believed that basically uh like through Lucy like through a human like the black humans are like masters of like through a human like basically through a spirit self-still without human like the spirit queen might be able to like finally succeed at that point and eventually be able to like bring about that change and change up the roles of like the spirit king and basically finally that way be able to like succeed in like bring about that justice for all like options which might be all like a number of like spirit that exit might be also the case especially might be very interesting to like the between concern might be like the concern of like some of them might be also the case that we might be brainwashed. So like definitely understand like this between might have like the moment like we was born like this between might have only been able to like sense like the uh sense like read like the soul of like within soul of like Lucian might have seen that soul as like the chosen one who definitely will eventually becoming like a still wizard and would be like the best option for like a spirit king to like achieve a goal and like eventually defeat like the spirit king and basically finally bring about that justice to all of our like options to all the self spirit directed might be what might be like that different situation the human crimson might be the reason for like basically the spirit king like totally getting so extremely most likely right now being like intimidated by Lucy and basically Lucy's like magical power like within like of even causing like the spirit king himself like who's like the very at like very high position at the very top of like the spirit world like basically like Lucy's power and causing like himself like the spirit king himself to like totally show up before like Lucy might be solely due to like from that very moment when Lucy might was like trying to like save Loki like Lucy might have been able to like for that reason and might have been able to like have that temporary access to like the true powers of like the spirit queen which might have been through which like Lucy might have forcefully might have saved Loki might have been what might have happened and this might be like instantly like the scripting might have sensed that and like this might be the reason for like scripting then like showing up right now in front of like Lucy might be the case is definitely might be what might have happened in actuality definitely like might have been so then you know the next thing on this definitely that like it might be totally due to like solely due to like Lucy like extreme desperation and like they need to like save Loki alone that might be only briefly and momentarily will be even making it possible for like Lucy to even be able to like temporarily and briefly access uh, the spirit queen which might the spirit queen spirit which might probably within that Lucy that spirit queen's that power which might be totally the soul factor that might be right now even enabling Lucy to be able to like summon all of like Lucy's like sensitive spirit at once like simultaneously right now in the second. Uh, this definitely my friend which even Karen couldn't like Lucy being able to like do that that would be only solely due to that Lucy's like extreme need and desperate state in which that Lucy right now briefly isn't solely to like say Loki alone. But like the whole situation would be over like I'm thinking like once like Lucy would run back to her like normal self. At that point I'm definitely working like Lucy not being able to like uh bring about like not even one more like not even two sensitive spirits simultaneously at the same time at all. Is like the scenario that I'm talking about. And like at that point, definitely I'm looking Loki as well. Will be definitely certainly will be noticing that as well. Definitely not like right now Loki would be the only thing that Disney Lucy might have that only have the power to like summon like might be far stronger than Kiernan might have like the power to like summon all of our like the spirit had like once through like power and through her will might be along the lines like Loki right now would be assuming. But like I'm sorry, like Loki eventually will be getting that absolute shock of like a confusion. Once like Loki eventually will be that also finding out that basically Lucy is not uh, able to that bring about like to self respect later on like Loki will be witnessing that Lucy not being able to like bring about like to self respect simultaneously at once to that even what like in the scenario where like at that point I'm looking like Loki going to be like to be most likely the first person to like most likely come to like the conclusion that is the it's only once like Lucy's like desire to achieve something and like that need is like that extreme at that extreme point alone that like Lucy has like that immense potential that lies within that Loki even has access to it will be along the line like Loki could eventually come down to such the conclusion usually in the and I love looking at that point like Loki even telling Lucy and like to only at that point like Lucy as well could be when realizing that it's definitely not the same. Definitely not the ambitions that like all of like Lucy's dialogues like words like supposing like this spirit things like throat and it's like resistant. Basically from like the spirit king's point of view that he won't be seeing Lucy at all. Like he will just be seeing all this as like basically that the spirit queen's like spirit like existing within like Lucy about which like the spirit king might be totally aware of that on like the perspective, like perspective, he will be only not only losing, but like he will be what he will get from totally seeing and feeling would be like the kid between from within like Lucy shouting back at like shouting back and rebelling against like the Spirit King exactly like she did in like the ancient past. From my comprehension might be the case definitely and might be how like the Spirit King would be like seeing and feeling like all the dialogue but like looking against him right now in like might be the case definitely not correct. Okay, so like definitely not correct right now definitely for like even with like Lucy's like all of like the dialogues of like Lucy and for different like the Spirit King to like not at all change from his like stand of like basically keeping like the dogs like the gate to like the spirit for close for like Loki is like in the scenario that I'm doing, I think declare that to like Lucy and like basically then could also telling Lucy that like yet like still since like Lucy so desperate to like want to like save Loki is going to like give Lucy a chance of like the more likely person that I'm looking right now. Like I'm looking like the spirit king would be totally testing that ideology of like not Lucy but like the character of like the uh, kid twin, which might be totally I don't remember the movie for something like Lucy. This is like the cooking would be totally up to me. Suddenly feeling would be making Lucy that even say all these words and to like act exactly like the scripting and basically challenge like the scripting and like attempting to like change the whole once again. Maybe along the line like the scripting king will be things so like like the scripting so it is adding to like test like the ideologies of like Luffy and like between by like and right now like scripting probably most likely giving like Lucy an option to like Luffy who's definitely since like Lucy so badly and really want to like save Luffy like I'm looking maybe right now for like scripting giving Lucy like the option to like Luffy to like give up like 50% of like Lucy's lifespan to like Luffy to save if that Luffy wants to like save Luffy right now. It will be along the lines of that a challenging option of like an absolute test that like I'm looking like this picking right now would be like place in front of like Lucy's like the scenario that I'm going and like this picking on the front will be probably it's been feeling extremely overconfident while making this like declaration and giving this like test to like Lucy and like speaking would be at that point of contemplating that basically Lucy would be totally eventually like ending up becoming selfish and like basically not all be willing to like give up like 50% of like uh Lucy's like lifespan to like Loki would be along the lines like this king would be or contemplating but like I'm definitely in getting that up to shock while like and up for different for Loki at that point will be desperately pleading to like Lucy to like definitely not do it. But like I'm putting like Lucy with like a smile and that absolute confidence like and like giving up like 50% of her like when I sharing it with like Loki and that was saving Loki like with an arc that but in that being that's an absolute stop to like the Squid King at that point is like the scenario that I'm preparing. And like with that, like I'm preparing Lucy declare making kind of decision like I'm doing that lead to sticking like only even though shock like only declaring so like basically as you wish will be along the lines that the SpiritKing will be declaring and like granting that, and basically that way like Loki survives, but like while taking up like the 50% of that, which is like man, there's like in the scenario that I'm also about and sitting on the frame. So like the female differentiation right now is definitely for like it to be not only Loki alone that I'm totally putting would be from this point on without much clarity at all would be ending up becoming like the sensitive spirit of like the new sensitive spirit of like Lucy. But like I'm also putting definitely Lucy would be also like bringing like Aries as well. Like Loki is like great from Aries as well. And like Lucy would be bringing and basically connect with this world and like will be making essence with it as well. Without much creativity, like upper like making Loki as like a sensitive spirit. It's like in the scenario that I'm doing. So like right now with like the door to like the fifth world like being open for like Loki and for like the moment like the people are running back to like this fifth world, like the first person the first sensitive spirit that Loki will be the sprite something for would be definitely Aries and like definitely like Loki will be and Aries will be poorly shot and poorly absolutely placed to like shoot each other and then like while uh Loki and like Aries will be interacting with each other like I'm saying that for interaction will be layer setting and like Aries probably finding out all about like Loki what would be like going on top about like how great Lucy is and like how like his about physical. Definitely not the point that okay would be taking that decision to definitely be like the sensitive spirit of like Lucy and that definitely at that point maybe I'm the friend that either for to be like Loki himself that will be telling Aries that basically he to uh needs to like come along and basically that way maybe either through the channel or like I'm thinking like it might be Lucy herself that will be totally feeling that like it would be great to like how to bring like Aries as well as like one of the and to make Aries as well as like one of our like spirit. Definitely no permission for like from like Lucy previous like backstory to like Lucy definitely I'm whispering like Aries might have been definitely a self spirit that might have seriously thought like Lucy's like emotional sympathy as well as everything might be empathy and everything might be the case. So like Lucy will be desperately feeling that like strongly that like Aries definitely deserves justice. So like definitely I'm getting more about this stuff, like maybe it being like Lucy of that like making that decision to like definitely bring Aries back and like to make Aries as like a sensitive spirit along with like Loki so that like Aries definitely deserves to like experience like what it feels like to be like the celestial spirit of like a proper celestial wizard as well like definitely like that as well definitely being like a priority for like Lucy and that way like Lucy definitely preparing to like make bring Aries and like make Aries as well like which is like expensive without making it less like in the scenario that I'm feeling on the one brain. So my reimbursement right now is that the violence still taking a reimbursement that like to see being able like someone all of our like senses spirit might be like a momentary thing of like that access to like the powers of like Lucy of like the queen spirit which might exist within like Lucy that Mickey might have been able to like access and that brief moment like I'm still I'm talking about like after this would be after this lack of situation that may still Lucy being able to like maybe like simultaneously bring about like at least two sensitive spirits at the same time. It's also like about the that understood. That being like the percent maximum for like Lucy in like why Lucy would be in like normal self is definitely not brain so definitely that way, like I'm just like one like Lucy fundamental things will be making Aries as like sensitive spirit and almost like Loki like at that point I'm definitely putting like Lucy simultaneously using her power and like basically simultaneously bringing like Loki as well as like uh Aries into like the human world and basically like having that whole having a fun time on the two of them is like also and like bring them to and introducing like areas to like the very field and everything along with that glory and all of them and like to have fun about them would be along the lines like losing connect even the deciding and like even eventually it's like also like an usual scenario that I was bring up. So like the plan skills to my brother and mentioned that like Arsa as well as like secretary might be totally siblings and like their parents might be dark members definitely not the which is like in Texas, the past like and like it may have been not power of like Ragni like so it might have been Ragni along with this like guild members like Ragni might have been only been part of that a strong guild and like it might have been along with like guild members as part of like one of like top uh difficulty like some jobs that like they might have that like one of like the sharp field bases like there might be totally great number of dark field chase. So like they might have attack like a part of it that was something like they might have attack like one of like the dark field chase and that attack like I'm sort of like uh, that might have eventually ended up with like finally like the dark field members like getting suddenly overcaught and basically like at that point what might have happened might have been like that while like it might have been like second and of like father that made have been having that Indian fight against like Brian like and like their mother might have totally uh, might have also like been part of like that fight and might have taken a lot of injury part of that fight and fighting and basically still like I'm looking like one like usually it might have been obvious to her that basically that like they are about to lose the fight like and that might have also like she might have only managed to escape with like a circle of like the trade might have been the case of Lemon's friend. So like she might have probably yeah like I'm like eventually she might have probably while trying to like escape like she might have eventually ended up succumbing to her injuries while succeeding in like getting saving and ensuring like the safety of that as well as like Cigarette and that way like I'm putting yeah like I'm putting like even though that way Cigarette and Asa might have managed to like escape like I'm putting like they might have been shocked basically but like for that might have happened back then and like back then like in terms of as well as like Cigarette might have witnessed that basically uh Dragnate like basically having that ultimate battle against like the parents or like the it's also like a Muslim that I'm looking so definitely like Ragnir might have been a name that might have been like since way back then that might have been probably might have been fixed into like the mind of like into like the minds into like the memories of like cigarette as well as then back then the human brain. So definitely that way that through like their mothers like health like and something like as well as like cigarette might have eventually ended up at like an orphanage might have been what absolutely my premise so that like Secret as well as Sasta while showing up in that orphanage might have Secret while that Raj and like that absolutely have to like get revenge on like Ragni and all that looks like all the not with like might that desire of like wanting to get revenge might have only increased in like the case of like Secret but like the case of like Artha while growing up in like that orphanage like Artha might have slowly uh, might have been more open-minded and like that way, like even though it might have back then, like initially, even though some might have had like absolute disaster, like get revenge on that and struggle that not only just like the green eventually as like a friend or like some might have matured and realized that there's need that the normal guilt of that on the side of like justice and basically like that the dark will like the things they do are like for realistic things might deal with eventually as like as some might have do what like she might have didn't really realize definitely my friends and that way itself like there might have been like like the clash of like opinion between like Federer and Erza and like Severin even back then might have even revealed like Erza that like he definitely won't really go anyway that he will be totally be eventually once he will be like leading that orphanage like he will definitely be ensuring to like definitely so anyway to making it to like being one of like the council members and that way like he would eventually that aspect itself would be talking about like the structure of like the entirety of like the normal guilds and which we have like the darkness that take over that would be around the rank from the second even back then might have been to like and like that like second would be getting revenge for like practically as well for like what they did to like the parents along the line, like the train might have even back then might have been telling Asa and like Asa might have tried to like convince the train that he's like only wrong. That like the options are like on like the realistic side and Asa might have attempted to like convince like the train and might have failed the supplement for it. And that way like I'm like eventually once this like I can remember the mention once the like the family might have shown up to like probably at that point I'm like the train might have put on that absolute fake acting and this league might have that only that that is absolute that selection making that look as presentable as like possible and like they might also be put on a totally so different personality and everything to that thoroughly impress that noble couple who made a soul to that organization like that way the grand might also be while Atwa might have stayed in like that organization might have been what might have happened given that way like I'm looking that Setbrain eventually took also from like two three ways that Setbrain might have ended up uh being part of an overall family. I think it's a necessary condition for an individual to make it to the function position and so in that way the brain might have uh, through all sorts of ways the brain might have made it to become a council member, might have been what might have happened definitely when brain so definitely since then the brain the brain of becoming a council member might be also secretly and still be might be communicating and making more to move that up that was the brain and that was father who might be still alive into the person and who might be still one of the top leaders of the entire capital market, one among the very top leaders of the multiple very top leaders of the entire capital market. One among them might be the great and of might be the case with Lehman Friend. So, yet some might have totally since that might have totally forgotten, might have not heard anything at all about Aslam's father, and so might have also after leaving the orphanage some might have even fixed in our mind to basically to reward for remaining of her life to totally by working for the normal guilt and for fighting for justice, as to make up for what Asa certainly might have felt that guilt from Asa personal perspective, but some might have felt that basically solely reflect Asa being part of the task in that distant past basically might have felt that unnecessary guilt and might have decided to make up for it by devoting the remaining of her life working hard for protecting the justice and working hard for justice of the normal kids and everything and fighting against by fighting against narcissism. It might be along the lines might have came down to the division and that might be how Lakasa might have ended up in the failure as well might be what might happen to the Lehman framework. So definitely this might be the reason for of even implementing friends from that this might be the reason for of being so extremely strict about following all the rules of the guilt and everything that might be all part of just underlying feeling of guilt that might be having within just might be the friend trying to make up for might be the case with implement friends. So I'm wondering what might have happened in the what might be happening in the near future which might have resulted in according to losing losing her smile I'm considering that might be I'm considering that island island place that was to be they are I'm considering that's of a center in pop who might remember might be one of the top leaders he might have only made a move as for maybe the instantly planning of Severin and power and he might have only maybe with the steady help of Severin he might have only made a move and might have only maybe attacked that island and might have even destroyed that island. Might be also this is an open to that episode. Maybe that might be the reason for that mysterious island place being revealed to be the dark stage might be because of that is remote possibility that I'm using, right? So it might be that island might have also gotten destroyed by as for specifically planning of Severin and Severin's father and he might have totally along with a huge army of dark that might have raided into that island and might have destroyed that island. And maybe there might have been some sort of a special and unique magic or forbidden magic open there on that island. Might have been also the case maybe some sort of a forbidden magic something that might be present there in on that island and maybe it's the father of Lexidrin and who might be one of the last leader who might be only or confident by now he might have done so much of a dark leader and might be having huge army of dark team members as well as himself with maybe sort of self might have gained learn also to powerful for magic and might be currently person might be having also superior powers and everything so he might have that absolute all confidence and even though the person might be also still having that upgrade that to get revenge on dragon as well might be the case so possibly that I'm for it. So definitely we might have totally destroyed that island might be the end of the remote possibility of make that island being maybe the place where fragment might have been born definitely also where fragment access on the home might have been I think it's definitely before fragment might have left, threw up and left, left, finding for no home might have been even present in that island. Might have been the case also like about that I'm thinking. So like that island might have been the fraud and like maybe the thing which is for like maybe like the newspaper like the photo of that top tournament like the top stuff will lead up to basically was like leading that whole attack on that island might have been present on like the newspaper which might have been the fact of that might have given that absolute shock to like Asa where like Asa seeing that photo might also realize that like it was the father that had done that. That like he still hadn't changed, and he still like has only grown more villains as like a dark leader, and basically all those like realization might have happened to like Asa. So like the simple like it might be only at that point that like Asa might have even had like or any learned of like any news about her father and like so it might have been like and the fact that like in that newspaper like it might have said that like we had learned that attack and like that in the island of like the squad and a lot of like innocent lives as well of like lost uh of like the civilians in that island and everything might have been what had happened and this like shock might have been like the fact that might have resulted in like us all of a sudden in like the near future like losing us might according to like Lucy might be the case is definitely might be very hand question as for like what might have happened.